How great would it be if you could just set it and forget it when it comes to your finances? If everything just worked automatically and you were always on track. If you've been looking into anything like this, you've probably come across Mint.com. It's fairly popular in the fintech world, and it's a great option if you're looking to add something like this to your personal finance routine. But chances are you're also wondering how Mint's security is. You might be wondering, is Mint even safe to use? How are they using my information? And if I do want to use Mint, how can I protect myself and my money? Today, we're going to dive right into my Mint account. I'm going to show you exactly how it works, what's great about it, and what's not so great, so you can decide for yourself if you're going to start using Mint for your financial life. Welcome to the Ready Set Life YouTube channel. My name is Brittany, and I am a millennial financial coach who makes videos all about taking the fear out of finance. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos every other Thursday, and you don't want to miss them. Before we get into it, I know this video is going to be a long one, so I've put some time codes for each of the sections down below. Obviously, I'd love if you were to watch the whole thing. I need as much watch time as possible to get that sweet, sweet AdSense money, but I also know that people probably have different priorities when it comes to this review. And I don't want to waste your time with information that you don't care about. So feel free to skip around the video to whatever sections that you care about the most. When I'm supporting a company, I want to know that it does good work. I don't just want to say something is great and then find out later that behind the scenes they don't match up with my values. So I love it when reviewers add sections on controversies and company values. I won't say that I'm the best at digging up all the dirt, but here's what I've researched for Mint. Mint is a subsidiary of the company Intuit, which also runs QuickBooks and TurboTax. Full disclosure, I've been using the Mint service since 2015, and I also use QuickBooks for my business finances. So you could say I'm in a little deep with Intuit. Intuit says its core values are integrity, passion, and respect. They have sections on their website about their beliefs and their culture and their corporate responsibility, which I appreciate. I like seeing them talk about their commitment to inclusion and diversity, and being open about the efforts that they're taking to support environmental issues and women. They say that women make up 27% of their global workforce, which for a tech company is huge. I also like that of their 14 high-ranking executives, 6 of them are women. They look like they're all white women, but they're women. Intuit also has a 4.4 rating on Glassdoor, which probably means that they treat their employees well. And those are all things that I like to hear. In terms of controversies, there's not a whole lot. In 2019, the app TurboTax, which again is owned by Intuit, was sued in the US for allegedly hiding the free option of tax filing. I'm not sure what that means for Canadian repercussions, if there was any of this, but I guess in the US there's a law that the IRS put in place to allow people making less than $66,000 a year to file their taxes for free. And TurboTax and H&R Block was making it very difficult to find on their websites, like they didn't even offer the service. So yeah, that's bad, but in the grand scheme of things, could have been much worse. Also, that's TurboTax and not Mint, so I don't really know how much of an overlap that really has. If you don't know, Mint.com is basically a financial aggregator. It can take all the financial data that you have, your bank accounts, your credit cards, and your loans, and whatever assets that you have, like your pension and the value of your house, your car, whatever, so it's all in one place. It can help you get a bird's eye view of all your financial data. And it also has features like bill alerts or high spending alerts, goal tracking, and lots more. They call themselves a budget tracker and planner, and tout that they'll help you effortlessly manage your finances all in one place. For me, it's less a budget tracker and more a net worth tracker. And I'll explain what I mean a little bit here, but it's worth noting now that this isn't an all-in-one solution. Let's get into the details and start showing you what you'll find on the inside and how it works. When you first log into the site, you'll see your overview page. This page is basically your headquarters or your dashboard. There are many different preset cards that you can choose, from a top view of your budgets and account summary, and then a look at your spending trends and net worth. Now you can play around and hide and add these cards to customize what you want to show here. And I really like that this gives you a bird's eye view of everything. But honestly, I rarely look at this, mostly because I have the phone app for this page, but we'll get into that later on. When I'm visiting the website version of Mint, I'm usually looking for a little more detail that you don't find on the mobile app. The second tab here is called the transaction page, and this is really helpful to view on desktop because of its additional functionality. When you connect all of your accounts to Mint, it automatically syncs your transactions. However, it's not always the most accurate information. You'll need to go through and make sure that the categorizations are correct. For example, if you buy cleaning supplies at a drugstore, it might get labeled as pharmacy or beauty instead of household. To have a true representation of what you've actually spent, you'll need to remember to go in and keep track of this. When I was using Mint more for budgeting, I made sure to check in at least once a week to make sure that these changes were being made. Mainly because I have such a shitty memory, I didn't think that I could wait an entire month to make those changes, but also to keep it front of mind and accurate on a regular basis. Nowadays, the accuracy of Mint records doesn't really matter as much. It's cool to kind of look back and see how much I spent on restaurants versus grocery shopping for the past 4 years, but now I've got a fairly good handle on that type of spending, so I don't really need to keep records like that. I usually go in once a month or once a quarter just to fix the major things that I have going on. Like the fact that Mint somehow tracks my rent payments as music, which gives me lots of weird alerts about high entertainment spending. And I know that there's an option to fix this, but it doesn't seem to fix, and I'm too busy to go through the Mint customer service to get it done. The Budgets tab is where you can set spending limits for certain transaction categories. Mint will send you an alert when you get close or are over your limit. This is helpful, and when you're attached to your phone 24/7, these alerts can help you from making these big overspending mistakes. However, this system is sort of reactionary. Even if you are glued to your phone and you receive these notifications early enough, it might not help you. If you've budgeted $200 for eating out the entire month but get a close to your limit alert in the first week, are you really going to stop yourself from eating out? And what happens if you don't get that notification at all? You might not even realize that you've gone over your limit until you check into your app later on, and by that point, there's not really anything that you can do with it. Another thing about this is that it's all based off your transaction history, which, if you remember, is not always accurate. If you're not on top of making sure those are input properly, you might get complacent with ignoring those inaccurate notifications. And then the system doesn't really work at all. What I do think this section is helpful for is if you're just starting out with budgeting. If you have no idea what you spend, maybe you need some sort of automatic system that tracks and categorizes your spending so you can figure out generally where you're at with that breakdown. Once you have all these numbers, then you can move that knowledge into creating a more sustainable budgeting system that will work for you. This might also be good if you're not an Excel person. If you need a place to just play around with what your money plan could possibly look like, the more you change these sections, the more it changes over here, that kind of thing. That will help you to understand what different spending amounts will do to your overall bottom line. If you don't know how to calculate that all by yourself, this is a really good interface that will do it for you. When I first started using Mint, the goals section was one of my favorites. In this tab, you can input all your hopes and dreams, and Mint will auto-calculate how long it will take you to reach them given the amount that you agree to deposit each month. This is great. I know that you can do this with a calculator, but this is just so easy, and it's super motivating to be able to play around and see what's possible. Mint also helps you with pricing things out. So for example, when you select buying a home, you can input all the things that matter, like the down payment that you'd like to have, what you think the interest might be, the insurance, and the property tax. Then it will give you a general idea of where you should be at. I don't know where it gets these numbers from, but some of the tooltips in these sections say things like based on the national average, or the average rate is blank. So I think they're at least making some sort of educated guesses. Now, as you can see, my goals section is a little weird. This whole tour has been a little bit weird, partly because I was playing around with some numbers for this video, but also because I don't actually use Mint on a day-to-day basis anymore. You can see that it mentions me being behind on almost all of my goals. Number one, this is super helpful. If you were using this properly, it's really good to know whether you're actually on track or not to reach what you need to in the time that you've allotted for it. But for me, there's a reason why I don't use this feature anymore. Now that I've sort of matured in my financial journey, I have bigger plans. I have different goals for 1, 3, 5, and 10 years out. And these goals will sometimes stack onto each other. And it's a bit frustrating that I can't put this together in Mint. For example, you can see here that I have a goal of owning a home by 35. That's the year 2027. But I've had to move my goal to March of 2047. I can only contribute $150 while I'm saving for a car. But that car goal is going to be finished in about a year. And when that happens, I can reallocate those savings to this house account, which would put me on track again to finishing that bucket in the time frame that I actually want. So I'm still saving the same amount, but it's just rolled into the other goals. This is also how I recommend you pay off your debts. So if you have multiple debts that you're going to want to focus on one of them first and then roll the payments into the other as they finish. I'll link my debt video up above if you want more information on that. It's a bit frustrating that I have to make kind of fake end dates for my goals, even though my plan, if all goes well, actually does work out to finish on time. The trend section is the best section. It's the one that I still use today and why I keep my Mint account open. This section is where you can go back on all of your transactions, all of your goals, your budgets, and see the history of your financial life. If you click over to spending, you can see over time how much you spend each month and what categories you spend in the most. If you look over here, you can see that I spend an average of $2,352 a month, and the most I've ever spent at once was $8,936. And that was back when I didn't do my taxes for 3 years. I finally got responsible and the refund actually went towards my student loans. So I am so sorry, CRA. I was a very irresponsible person back then and it will never happen again. That was such a stressful time. I can also see that I've spent $39,000 on rent since I got Mint in 2015. And food and dining is my second highest category, which isn't surprising, but it kind of makes me a little bit sad that I'm just eating away all of my money. If I go into the debt section, I can see how much debt that I paid off, which is super cool. And my ultimate favorite, if we look at the net worth section, we can actually see the terrible hole that I was in and how much I've changed my financial health since I got my shit together. It honestly makes me super proud to see all that. Since I started with Mint, I've gained a ton. Looking at those bars, in 5 years, I've basically turned my entire financial future upside down. And I'm almost at the same level as positive than I was in the negative when I first started. This is where I think Mint shines. Aggregating all of this data and presenting it in this easy to view, easy to categorize and filter setting is incredibly helpful. I love data, and I love being able to see how far I've come by just coming to look at this tab. It also helps if you keep track of it too. You can use these numbers as a way to get a bird's eye view of once a month or once a year even to kind of take a look at where your spending lies. It can help you figure out if your values are being represented in your spending. I hate that I'm using bird's eye view. Like, I've probably said it 4 times. That's too many. That's too many. I can only use that once. I'm doing it. It's already written, but I'm upset about it. The ways to save tab is sort of the advertising tab, and I literally never look at this tab. I hesitate to say this because Mint is a super cool company and I'd love it if they would sponsor me one day, but right now I'm not affiliated with them at all, and as a financial coach, I can't really recommend this tab. Obviously, this is where Mint makes their money. They advertise special deals and rates on credit cards or loans in this section, and they get paid a certain amount if you sign up for one of these deals. I assume. I have no idea what their money system looks like. So maybe I should say this is how they allegedly get paid. It might be helpful to look at this section if you're already in the market for a credit card. Their filtering system might work well, and I'm sure they offer fine rates. But I wouldn't suggest looking at them just to browse. Offers like these are tempting, and if you're just beginning your financial journey, it can be irresistible to get the sale, and then you're just adding to your debt. It's just another plate that you don't need to juggle. Something I have to mention here too is Mint's mobile app. The app doesn't have as much functionality as the website, but it is great for managing your account day to day. You can keep on top of things like your transaction categories, check up on your account balances, and keep track of your spending. Again, it's sort of a reactive system, but it could help for a quick check to just rein in your purchases. Another thing that's great about the app is that Mint can send you alerts. I get notifications about when my bills are due and when spending is high or close to its limit. It also tells you when you've been charged a bank fee. So just in case you have an account at some bank that you never use and wouldn't check regularly, you'll know if it does anything funky. The app is super easy to use, and I definitely recommend putting it on your phone if you're using Mint. Now that we've got the actual details of Mint out of the way, let's talk about safety. You're giving Mint a lot of access to things, and we should be keeping online protection at the top of our minds, especially when we're talking about our money. To preface this, I am not a tech guru, so everything I'm about to tell you has been researched from other experts, and I don't understand the world enough to cross-check it. So take what I say with a grain of salt. And if you're more techie than me, maybe you'll be able to look it up on your own. But here's what I found. Mint uses end-to-end encryption, which protects third parties from accessing your data. It's basically like sending the information in a special coded message that only Mint has access to. If a hacker gets a hold of any of this data, they'll have to go through a lengthy process of decoding it to make it usable. If you're a techie, Mint uses 128-bit SSL for its digital files in transit, and those files are protected on the company's servers with 252-bit encryption. That's all gobbledygook to me, but apparently it's as high as any bank would use. So if you're comfortable with internet banking, you should be comfortable with using Mint. Speaking of banks, that's something else to note here. Mint wouldn't need access to your bank login details if the banks were actually okay with these types of systems accessing their information. Banks have a huge responsibility to keep your money safe, so they don't really like third parties coming in and potentially creating more access points for a hacker. There actually is a way that banks could cooperate with third-party apps like this by creating API keys that would give read-only access. Again, totally not a techie, but basically it would be like giving Mint a special key that only Mint could use to create a read-only connection with the bank, without requiring us to actually log in with our real bank usernames and passcodes. The problem is, banks aren't cooperating. My impression is that the fintech world is moving faster than the banks, and the banks aren't ready, or more likely, not willing to handle it. For us, that means that even though these types of apps, like Mint, are super cool and convenient, using them might violate that fine print terms and conditions that your bank has in place, i.e. avoiding the fraud protection. Basically, if you have a fraud on your account, your bank could say, hey, we hear you've been using a third-party app, so we're not going to help you. It pretty much gives them the excuse to pass the buck. However, there is a super slim chance of this happening. I don't really see how a bank could know that you're using a third-party service unless you told them. And even then, I don't really know how many employees would activate that little loophole. It seems like something that would only be used in court or for an extreme situation. But again, totally just my opinion. I am not a bank employee or a lawyer. So please take the information and make your own decisions with it. Another thing is that Mint doesn't control any of your accounts. It's a read-only connection. So if hackers do get a hold of your Mint account, they'd only be able to see how much you have in your accounts and what you spend your money on, not take any action like withdrawing it. This is why you need different passwords and login information for each site. If a hacker were to get a hold of your Mint login information, they'd be able to see what bank you used and try it out on those websites. Then they'd be able to get into your actual bank account and take out the money. Side note, Mint also has two-factor authentication, and you'll want to turn that on. I know, it's a little annoying to have to get a text or an email with a code every time that you want to log into something, but if you have that turned on, you'll know if someone is trying to break into your Mint account. Even if they had your login information, they wouldn't be able to get in because they wouldn't have that special authentication code. The last thing I want to talk about here is how Mint uses your information. Mint makes money on those credit card ads, I'm sure, but probably, and again, allegedly here, because I'm not an employee of Mint, I have no idea, but I'll bet that they make more money in selling your information. Yes, Mint sells your data, and that can sound scary, but I think Mint does it in a respectful way. They protect your privacy by aggregating the data and anonymizing it. So they'll tell people approximately how much consumers spend on X or Y as a group, but they won't identify that this specific person spends this specific amount on whatever. I think that that's the best of both worlds. It allows the data to be collected and used in potentially awesome ways, but it also protects us and lets us do whatever we want in peace. For Canadians specifically, we do have to talk about where they store their data. In Canada, we have one overarching federal law that governs our information. It's called the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, or PIPEDA. It has a bunch of different rules and regulations on how our data can be used and shared. Now, I said this is a federal law, but technically the rules are a little bit different in Alberta, British Columbia, and Quebec, but they all have laws that are pretty similar to PIPEDA. And this is all well and good. But one of the provisions in PIPEDA is that the information that's stored outside of Canada isn't subject to this law. And Mint stores its data in the US. So that means it's governed by the US laws, which are totally different. The US doesn't actually have an overarching law like this. They have sort of a jumble of federal and state laws that all depend on the specific situation and use. Now, I'm obviously not going to go over every specific situation or figure out exactly what the differences are between the laws in Canada and the laws in the US, but suffice it to say that the US is far less stringent on things like their government having access to your data, or the rules on how and when corporations can use your data. PIPEDA, on the other hand, is pretty strict on these things and tends to err on the side of the consumer rather than the corporation. Either way, I don't think it's a huge thing, unless you're like hiding from the US government or something. But it's worth noting that our Canadian protections are sort of voided when this information is stored on an international server. So that was a lot of information, but hopefully it gives you a good idea on the system and if you want to implement it for yourself. As a financial coach, I have mixed feelings on Mint. I have a super soft spot for Mint in my life because when I first started out, it made a huge difference on how I thought and planned things around my finances. If you've got a fairly simple money story, like you have one or two debts and you're just kind of looking to start some sort of plan for the future, this is a really great tool. It can get you started and used to looking at your money in a more structured way. And it's a great introduction into managing your money like an adult. If you've got a more complicated structure, like maybe you know you're overspending almost every month and you've got like 5 or 6 credit cards and loans going on, it might be really hard to fit that system into Mint. For that situation, I'd recommend being a lot more active in your money plan. And a set and forget automatic system like Mint might not be the best outlet to start with that. Regardless of your situation, I think that the interface of Mint and the option of collecting your spending data is super cool. So if you're interested in anything like that, I'd say go for it. For using the actual budgeting part, there are pros and cons, but for the data and the net worth tracking, it's completely worth it. What are your feelings about Mint? Have you ever used it, or are you interested in getting an account now? Let me know in the comments down below. Please give this video a like if you liked it and share it with a friend. This video took me far too long to research and I'd love it if this actually did well. So if anyone in your life is interested in Mint, send them along. Remember that I'm down to videos every other Thursday now. So I won't be back next week, but I will see you the week after that. Until then, I'm wishing you great financial health. Bye! They say that women wake. No. Mint is a subsidiary. This doesn't make sense, that's why. I've written it badly, is why this is not working. And make your own decisions. Ooh, I'm doing it bad.